Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Gamers Workshop. We're here to discuss whether Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild belongs in what part of the timeline. We're going to first analyze the trailer, so here we go.
Open your eyes.
So when we first see the trailer, they open to us a brand new world where it has different terrains just like any other Legend of Zelda game, but it's more open and bigger than before. However, we do see some elements that are still the same in Legend of Zelda, of let's say the monsters going around, the terrain of different like Gerudo Valley, and then we get to open Hyrule Field. We can see all these different terrains, and it's very nice to see this new mixture of kind of like Skyward Sword mixed with the classical Legend of Zelda we know from Ocarina and Twilight. So as we go in, we get to see some of the old buildings like the Temple of Time as we see right now. Also, we're going to see later the Bridge of Eldin. Now, a good thing to notice is that Bridge of Eldin is in this trailer when Bridge of Eldin wasn't introduced
Open
until
your
Twilight
eyes.
Princess. Another thing that's really cool is that there's a Temple of Time which wasn't created as per Hyrule Historia until after
The
this
cockpit.
event of Skyward Sword, when humans are going to Hyrule, which is the land, the earth, and establishing it, which is established by the Light Sage. As we go on, we get to see more of the gameplay of the forest and the wild animals, which apparently we don't know if Epona is even going to be in this game, but many people suspect we will. Bridge of Eldin looks completely brand new, so it leads us to believe if it's maybe a prequel or a sequel to Twilight. So we have a bunch of new game mechanics, which is really cool, but as we know, these game mechanics are going to be introduced because it's a new game. What's more important is what's in the game itself, which is the creatures and the book that we now have with the Shikai symbol. So now we know that the Shikai are going to have a bunch of influence in this game, and mostly it's probably going to be the main plot, since it surrounds around this entire book as your main weapon. Now, the Moblins and Goblins are brand new to the Legend of Zelda series as of if it's part Twilight or Skyward, because usually these are creatures that realm in the Dark World, which Dark World hasn't been introduced to neither Skyward nor Twilight Princess, though Twilight Princess was about Ganondorf trying to create the Dark World by mixing Twilight with light. So the book seems to have a major purpose in this game. It's probably what has to do with the main plot, and also these creatures with the four tentacles almost look like Doc Ock are mostly part of it. But we gotta try to remember how the creature is designed of all the little encryptions on it. And then lastly, we're introduced to the Master Sword at the end. So for those who don't know, this is a timeline as we know by Hyrule Story. You can look it up. And we're going to go over mostly main theories. The first theory is it's a sequel to Skyward Sword. As you can see, Skyward Sword is a lovely place up in the sky, and Hylia, which is a goddess, is the first ever where the humans are. Hylia created this domain for humans to live after protecting them from the Great War against the evil demon king Demise. As we go on, you find out of Zelda being the reincarnation of the goddess, and Link being the hero of the goddesses as their established knight. However, in this series, the Master Sword doesn't even exist yet. It's the Skyward Sword. The Skyward Sword is the original Master Sword. It is the Master Sword just in its, let's call it pre-evolution state, whereas later on you figure out that it evolved into the Master Sword as its final state. In the end, you learn that the Master Sword has its own spirit as Fiona, and counterpart, the Miser's Sword, apparently has its own spirit, which is Girahim, which will be the main villain in this game. This establishes the Legend of Zelda series as known as to be the first part of the story, before it splits off at Ocarina of Time. Now, one key thing to take away from this game, as you see, is that the design of the clothes from Breath of the Wild does match Skyward Sword's design, which is why many people lead to believe that it's probably a sequel after Skyward Sword. Not only this, but you do see the Hylia crest, not the Hyrule crest, in some places, and some of the designs on the temples themselves are part of Skyward Sword. Though this is true, we gotta remember the end of Skyward Sword, where Demise is vanquished and sealed into the Master Sword, which his hate will later cause a reincarnation of Ganondorf in the next series. and Vati will also come in later on. But the most important thing to get is that Demise is locked into the Master Sword. We haven't had Ganondorf yet, and we gotta remember where the Master Sword is placed. The Master Sword is a key of why this theory doesn't really work out so well. In this game, you go with the Master Sword and you seal away Demise, which is sealed away in the Master Sword, back into the main pedestal. This pedestal is a key part in the role of why this theory doesn't work. The pedestal is the original pedestal in the goddess's temple. When you go back to Breath of the Wild, the trailer of where the Master Sword is in a forest, most likely Faron Woods. And the pedestal is not the original pedestal as this one. This is the original pedestal. However, in Twilight, the pedestal is no longer that. It's actually different. It's actually just a regular old pedestal locked away in the Temple of Time, which in Twilight it's located in Faron Woods, which is where you find the Master Sword. This is the problem to the theory because the goddess's temple does crash down, but it doesn't mean the Master Sword was located there. The Master Sword was later on placed into the Temple of Time by the Light Sage. Because of this, it's doubtable that the game would be a sequel to Skyward Sword. So we would have to lead on to our next theory, which is Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess, you find the Master Sword inside the woods, inside the original Temple of Time, which is completely overrun by forests and greenery. And because of this, you suspect that the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild might be the same, however, it looks more broken down, while this sword in Twilight Princess looks brand new. It could say that it could be events after Twilight Princess, many years after, before Four Swords of Vati being resurrected, and the new Ganondorf being born into this realm. And you could think that it works out pretty well, considering of most of the evidence that points to Twilight Princess, especially with all the new news of the new Twilight Princess Bango, of how in multiple interviews that they said to play Twilight Princess, that it's probably going to be an important role before you play the new game of Legend of Zelda. Also, if you look at this new video of the Temple of Time in the new Breath of the Wild, you can see it's also destroyed and eradicated. It looks like it was overrun by forests, but we don't see as much greenery around it like we do in Twilight Princess. This could still be that it's many years after, and it looks like there must have been a war or something going on, because we don't just see one of those four tentacle creatures. We see a bunch of them broken down, destroyed all across the land. Could be that was a major war. It's likely maybe the Twilight had something to do with this. After all, the markings on these robotic creatures seem similar to the Twilight, which we will see now in this last clip, which is the ending scene to Twilight Princess. Ganondorf is defeated with the Master Sword in him. However, he has not died because of his power of the Triforce. However, we know that the back of his palm, where the Triforce is located, is faded away, meaning he loses all powers of the Triforce and is completely now mortal. And because of this is why he dies, including the cinematic scene, as we all know and cringe, of seeing Zant, which he cracks his neck, and where Ganondorf is finally defeated and dead. At least as we know. We assume he's dead. Never really stated that he is dead. Neither in the Hystoria it's stated that he is dead. Merely it states that he is defeated. We don't know possibly where the Triforce went, because the Triforce does not disappear unless the user is either dead or is taken away. But then again, this is using logic from Hyrule Warriors, where the Triforce is taken away all the time. Though it could be interesting to see that the Legend of Zelda crew takes this theory away and tries to spin it off on their own. Regardless, we can see that if Ganondorf, in other interviews, they say Ganondorf will be involved in the new game. If true, maybe Twilight Princess's Ganondorf is not dead, or it plays a part in the story. Maybe resurrection. Maybe Zant's not destroyed completely, as we saw Phantom with him right now. Or it could be that cinematic scene just meant like revenge, because Ganondorf never really cared about Zant or any of the Twilights in the first place. Regardless of this, in the end of Twilight, Midna is restored to her final form, and you can see what's really important I want to get out of this is that when you see the back of her cloak, look at the image, look at the detail and the artistry of it. It looks pretty similar to the mechanical beings that are used in Breath of the Wild. In fact, you can assume probably that they have something to do after all, because the only two civilizations that seem to have advanced technology are the Shikai and the Twilight. Twilight because they're magical beings, Shikai because they have had secret techniques and secret arts, and no one really knows about them much, just that they are sworn to protect the princess. Now, it's hard to believe that Shikai created these machines, because if you look at back to the Temple of Time of the Breath of the Wild video, you'll see that they seem to be invading and attacking the temple, not really as a defending kind of. It looks like they're climbing towards it, not running away from it or protecting it. So it's good to assume probably that they have something to do with the Twilight, and the Twilight probably creating this mess in the first place. Though then it begs the question, what happens to Midna? Why doesn't she stop it? I thought they were on good terms. Then again, it is many years later. It could be that Midna has already passed and successors have gone, and maybe the Twilight are still demon. Remember, we never got a good explanation of what happened to the Twilight. Did they ever restore back to their regular form, or did they remain as demons and we had a good civil war or split between the regular Twilight and now the new created demons from the Twilight realm? Though the question also lies is how did it get to the light realm in the first place? Because Midna shatters the mirror that leads to the light realm from the Twilight. But we could say that it is only that Link and Zelda cannot go from light to twilight, but some twilights are possible to go to the light realm. Could also be that maybe Midna banished them to the light realm. We don't know much. We need to know more of the plot, which we're probably not going to find out till either more leaked videos or until the game itself comes out. However, it is a good possibility that the theory of it being a sequel to Twilight is a good possibility. You have the Bridge of Elden, you have the Temple of Time destroyed, you have a good sense of why these creatures are created. Moblins and goblins also are being introduced, which you have to think that the light realm and the dark world wasn't created yet, and these creatures are mostly residents of the dark world, so it makes you believe that maybe that Ganon is spewing a new plot to still create the dark world, which you'll later on see in the new Four Swords, the second one, which is the ending of this timeline. The last thing is it could just be a completely new timeline itself that branches off of Skyward or maybe even Ocarina of Time. It's just brand new, it's just something that they're going off of and they want to just start a new timeline, which is perfectly fine. It gives them more creativity, freedom, but there is a lot of questions that need to be answered if they want to do this. In due time we'll probably see it, however, Twilight seems to have the most evidence of why. Also, the new amiibos of Twilight Princess are also accessible into the game, and maybe they're doing that just as an Easter egg, but it could also be that it could actually play a role in the game. It could help you out, especially since in the latest interview they said that Link will have a companion in this game, besides the amiibo, an actual in-story companion. Could it be Zelda? Could it be Midna coming back? We don't know. And we would like to assume that hopefully if it is after Twilight, maybe Midna's back, which honestly is one of my favorite characters in the whole series. It's what made me actually love this Twilight Princess game the most. However, we have to really assume of what we know so far and what evidence we have. So, in the end, we hope that this game is going to be great. We hope that this game is going to either follow the timeline or it's just going to branch off on its own. Either way, it looks like they're trying to create and bring a bunch of new products into this game, and I hope you guys enjoy it.